That's
This call
recording.
is now being recorded.
The thing about losing a close friend or family member is you think you're ready, but you never are.
You never are.
You never are. And I know that by now, but I've had a hard night knowing that basically it's just, the end is here. But I hadn't talked to his family from North Carolina before, and the hospital called them in. So he's been a wonderful board member and everything.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, it's too bad.
God will take care of it.
Michael should be calling in here in a minute.
Call in right now?
Yes, sir. We're waiting for you. Yeah, I just called him on another phone, and he's going to call in. So what we're going to be doing today, by the way, do you go by Bobby or Arlene? I thought you were Arlene, and
Arlene
is that...
right. I married, Bobby is my second husband.
Okay, so I kind of thought that was right, but we have a Rosie named Bobby, so Bobby is your husband.
Yes.
Okay.
My name was, when I was the Riveter, was Arlene.
Yeah.
Okay. At that time.
Okay, and he's going to ask you those questions here in just a minute.
Okay.
Now, Michael Kindred is retired high school principal very close to Lexington, Kentucky. There's Michael.
Yes, ma'am.
There you go. We finally did it. I'm sorry I got confused, but we've accomplished it. Michael, Arlene Snyder is on the line. She is quite alert and very interesting story. She is from Charleston, West Virginia, or at least that's where she lives right now. And I thought to start, maybe you could introduce yourself, and I'll just leave it up to you to do the interview then, okay?
Okay. All righty. Hi, Miss Snyder. How are you?
Excuse me?
I was just saying, how are you doing?
Well, for 94 years old, I guess I'm all right. I have my aches and
Well, my dad, I just came from my dad's house. He's 92, still able to live by himself and stuff, but I take him his breakfast and everything in the morning, but he's doing pretty well also.
Oh, that's wonderful. Wonderful.
Like I said, my name's Mike Kindred. I live in Winchester, Kentucky, which is about 20 miles east of Lexington, Kentucky. Born and raised here, and I was a principal of a vocational school and just retired about a year ago. And I've been involved with Ann and Thanks organization now for about 3 years. We actually, matter of fact, I saw an article the other day, but it was on TV actually, I think. But one of the original Rosies was a lady by the name of Anna Will Monroe, I think. Anyway, Rose Monroe. I'm sorry.
Anna Rose Monroe. Yeah, right.
But anyway, she was from Pulaski, Kentucky, and one of the posters was supposedly done after her. But that's kind of how my interest got involved with that, along with some money and stuff. But I found that history and knowing Kentucky had a history with Rosie the Riveter is very interesting. So. But if you're ready, can you hear me okay?
Ready. Do you want me to tell you who I was and just basically who I was before I went to riveting?
That would be perfect. Let's just start with your name and when you were born and where you were born and just the basic information.
All right. I'm Arlene. Well, really, I go with the name of Arlene, but I have a Violet, but I don't use it. But it was Violet Arlene McCullough Taylor Snyder. I was married twice. So you get those two names, and they're nothing to do with the Rivers. And I was born in Ritchie County, West Virginia, in 1924, July the 26th, 1924. And after graduation from high school, I led a normal life. After graduating from high school, I went to Akron, Ohio, and I was hired by Goodyear Aircraft. Another girl, a friend of mine, called Kathleen Whaley Vanskoy, and we got an apartment and lived in Akron, Ohio, as long as we stayed there. We were hired by Goodyear Aircraft, and I was in Plant D to start with, and then I was moved over to Plant C, which was the old hangar for the Goodyear blimp. And there's where I worked on wings, airplane wings. I put the leading edge of the wing, they call it the leading edge of the skin, which you took to a table and you put the number of rivets you were going to put and where they were, and you drilled holes for the rivets. Then you took the piece that you were going to put on the wing over to the jig and pinned it up, and then from then on you did the riveting. So many size rivets, so many other size rivets, all the way up to the end of your wing. I had a bucker, and her name was Garnet. Her name was Garnet. I think she was from Lowell, West Virginia, and she was wonderful. She was really good. We got told pretty good, and we repaired some mess ups sometimes, if they could be. And it was just a normal work routine. I was pretty strong, young and strong, and held a riveting gun all day long.
Well, let's go back a minute now. When you were first born, were you raised on a farm?
No. I was born on a farm, but I was not raised on a farm.
Okay. And what did your mom and dad do?
Well, my dad was always he was born on a farm also, but he became a drilling contractor, oil and gas, drilling contractor.
Okay.
In Pleasant.
Now, are we talking about for oil, you mean, or for oil?
Yes. He never made any money. He always invested in, of course, he lost his shirt at that time. But he used to say, now I drilled that well, now I drilled this well. And they didn't drill them like they do today. They drilled them with tools that were, I don't know what they call them, and they have a machine to do it now.
So, did you have any brothers and sisters?
I had 3 sisters and 2 brothers.
Now, where did you fall? Were you in the middle of the pack, or were you older, younger?
I was the oldest child.
I'm an oldest child. I have to interrupt you, Arlene.
Okay.
The oldest child is always so responsible.
Oh,
Did you find yourself the most responsible?
I hope so.
We love to work. We love to work, and we love to think we do the job right? Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, that's fine. That's fine.
Well, I'm assuming part of your responsibility were raising your brothers and sisters.
Well, I helped them. I had a brother that was 18 months younger than I, so he was almost the same age, and another sister, which was 2 years older. No, she was 4 years older.
And so, what high school did you graduate from?
Pennsboro High School in Rich County. It is no longer there.
Can you spell the name of Arlene, spell the name of your high school for me. What is it?
No, Pennsboro.
Pennsboro.
Right.
Okay.
And the high school principal was C.R. Pop Sullivan. We call him Pop.
You remember how many were in your graduating class?
I think there was 60.
Well, that's pretty big.
Maybe not quite 60. But right after that, I went to Akron.
So,
it was
did you go to Akron because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor, I'm assuming?
Well, no, because Pearl Harbor was bombed in 1941. Is that not right?
Yeah, when did you go to Akron?
I went to Akron in August 1942. I graduated in June, went to Ohio in the same year. Okay. My girlfriend
do you remember where you were when you heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor?
No, let me see. I think I might have gotten the cart before the horse. Oh, yes, I remember where I was. The bombing of Pearl Harbor was before I went to Akron. So it was in 41, and I went in 42.
Okay.
I was at church. What a place to be. You're about let's see, what was the newscaster? One of our members come in late and told us that, I can't now see, I have a blockage every once in a while. I can't remember the name of
you're fine.
newscaster. And told us that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor. Oh, it was awful.
My dad, he just pulled out a newspaper the other day, and the first thing is amazing how big the paper is now compared to what he had then compared to now. But it was real interesting reading because it reports about the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And it was fascinating, but in the paper, the news was, I guess, getting there late, so they were underestimating the casualties and all that kind of stuff in the paper of what really took place.
U.S. West Virginia was one of those went down in Pearl Harbor too. With all
and I just had a friend that got back from Pearl Harbor, and he said for some reason they wouldn't let him go out onto the Arizona or get on the battleship Missouri, and I'm not sure why. Something was going on, but they wouldn't let him get out on the memorial while he was there. So when you went to Akron, did you go by yourself or did you go with your girlfriends?
We went with my girlfriend's parents because she had an uncle that lived in Atlett, which was a suburb of Akron.
And so what about your other brothers and sisters? Did they serve in the military? Did your brother?
They were still in high school.
Okay. So did your brother, did he ever serve?
Oh, yes. He was in Germany.
Was he in the Army or Marines? Or?
He was in the Army. He was wounded 3 times, I think.
Really?
Oh, really?
Yeah. But, you had a lot of people who were wounded that weren't totally disabled. Like you had a piece of shrapnel in your leg or your shoulder, or that's where he had his. And I had another brother that went in the Navy in the Vietnam War. No, Korean War. I'm getting my wars mixed up.
You're fine. So when you said you were a riveter, do you remember what airplane you basically were riveting the leading edge on?
The one I remember last was just wings from the land for the. They told us, I guess it was wings for the Lancaster bomber, which was an English bomber, and it was assembled. Yeah, it was assembled in England, in Leeds, England.
So you all did the riveting and sent the parts over to England?
Yeah, can you believe it? Well, we also, in Goodyear Aircraft, made a small Navy bomber plane, too.
Okay.
Now, that's what they...
Yeah, and I think that was the F-4U, the Corsair.
Yeah,
Does that make sense?
A small plane, and there's only one pilot in it.
Yeah, that's the Corsair. Mm-hmm.
They made it totally. I didn't work on it. Well, maybe I did start with it, but I didn't know it. It was just pieces.
So
explain it again. You made pieces for the other mission, the other airplane.
All that we made for there was the wings, just the wings, and it was shipped to England to leave England and assembled there.
Good
and
Lord!
They also made the.
I didn't know that. I didn't know that happened.
No, really.
Well, that's all we
So
were
what
told.
kind of? When you went to work there, what kind of did you know that you were going to be doing riveting, and what kind of training did you receive? And
no, but I got to learn for about 2 weeks, and then I got a toolbox to carry a big heavy toolbox.
And do you remember what they paid you?
No, I can't. I've got a little slip here someplace, and I thought, well, why didn't I look that up? By today's salary, it wouldn't have been enormous at all, but a long time ago, it was. I thought it was for a small town girl.
Well, like we interviewed Anna Hess yesterday, and she said for the first time she had money in her pocket to spend.
Yeah, I do too. We bought our own groceries and paid our own rent. I lived right on East Avenue.
So how many years did you work there?
Months. Not very long, because my girlfriend wanted to go to the West Coast to marry her boyfriend, and I didn't want to stay by myself, and so I just come home. And I remember that I got a job in the post office as a substitute clerk in place of Jack Broadwater, who was leaving for the service. You know, there were jobs opened up when people went to war, too.
Oh, yeah.
Now, that's interesting. You're saying that when you left Goodyear, you left before the end of the war, and you went to work for the post office. Am I hearing that? Because they were short of women or short of workers at the post office. Is that what you're saying, Arlene?
Yeah, because their clerks went to war. War.
Oh, really? And what did you do at the post office?
Just a mail order, worked at the window, sorted mail.
Is that right?
My grandfather, he delivered the mail after he was in World War I, but that's what he did until he retired. He worked at the post office. He really enjoyed his job.
And so, the ironic thing was when I got home and the man I married had a medical leave, and he went to finally, after about 16 years and 4 kids, he went to or 4 or 5 kids. He went to the postal department as a postmaster in Pennsboro.
So tell me about your husband. How did you meet him? Where did you meet him? And where was he from?
Well, I went to high school with him, but he was. I never had too many dates in high school with him, but of course I felt really bad when he had to come home from service. He was in the Air Force. He came home from the service with rheumatic fever. Said he hadn't been with his feet on the floor for 5 months.
Wow.
Yeah, I knew where he was. He walked to school, and he lived on a farm.
And so when he came back, how did you all start dating? Or?
Well, I can't remember. I can't remember when we had the first date.
Do you remember when he proposed to you?
Yeah. We were going to get married we were going to get married in Easter, but we didn't get married in Easter because he was using his money from severance, whatever you get when you get from the after you get out of leave, you get leave and you get a package. He was going to buy a stove. You know, you couldn't buy stoves and refrigerators and things like that. You had to have your name on a list. And if you didn't take it then, you had to wait and put it at the bottom of the list.
Huh? Didn't know that either.
Yeah.
So did he have to go pass a civil service exam to become postmaster?
Yeah, he had to take civil service exam.
Yeah.
And the thing about it was, he made a higher score. Of course, he got 10% added to his score, civil service test, than a high school person who was applying for it, a high school teacher.
Okay. So
explain that to me, Arlene. I'm sorry, Michael. Explain it to me again. You're saying that because he was a veteran, he got a 10% added to his score.
Yes.
Am I right about that, Arlene?
That is right, and I think it is still that way.
It may well be. I've heard it. I'm 79, and I've definitely heard that right after the war, that there was a veterans, I can't remember what it was called. But then let's go back to when you said that you couldn't buy stoves and refrigerators. You were going to get married in Easter, but you didn't. And tell us again why.
Well, he wanted to buy his mother a stove.
Oh, I see. So you delayed getting married.
Yeah, so we delayed getting married until June. Of that year, of that next same year.
And what happened to him? So he's your first husband. What happened to him?
Well, he went in the Air Force a year before, because he was a year ahead of me in school. And he went right into the service. And he was an airplane mechanic. But he got real sick, and I guess the whole company, the whole group of his fellow soldiers, or Navy, no, they were soldiers, got big red measles. You've heard tell of this, haven't you?
Yeah.
Haven't heard of it. But whole outfits would get them, and they would be real sick. And they settled in one ear, and with the way they treated them then, when the ear got infected, they went in with a real sharp instrument and lanced it, and it would start breaking the pus out of the ear. And he said that it drained for, I think, a week. And he went on the drill field with a still drilling, with a still dripping pus. And of course he was like that for about a week, and then he couldn't wake up. When he was really sick, he had rheumatic fever, which that's what happened. They didn't have penicillin like they do today, thank God.
I have known people when I was in high school who went into the military in the late 50s, mid to late 50s, who had rheumatic fever, and they were in training, and they just kept them going. And it basically they needed the men so badly in World War II that
they did.
You could be what we would call injured, and they would keep them going. Yeah.
And of course they were partly responsible too, because as long as they could go, they thought they should go. And one morning he had it really much. And
now, where was he?
Pardon?
Go ahead.
He was in the hospital for Illinois, Chanute Field.
Huh. And then where was he stationed in Europe?
Oh, no, he wasn't in Europe.
He was not.
He never went to overseas.
He never went overseas,
no,
but your brother was. Where was your brother stationed in Europe?
Well, I didn't know. I can't remember.
I thought at some point you had told me that he was at the Battle of the Bulge. Did you not tell me that? Maybe I'm confusing with somebody else.
Maybe it was someone else, because
it might have been.
Were in the Battle of the Bulge.
Now, what's the Lancaster bomber? At one point when I talked with you very briefly, I talked about the Lancaster bomber. What does it mean?
I'm talking about something they made for it. They did totally like they did the little Navy PBY.
There's a pretty famous story about a Lancaster bomber and one of the engines that caught fire, and one of the crewmen climbed out on the wing to try to put that fire out. And I saw that on the military channel here not too long ago.
You read that? You heard that song coming in on a wing and a prayer.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, do you remember being raised, or I guess you were raised up during the Depression? What was it like being raised during the Depression?
Well, you had soup, beans, and potatoes all the time. We did anyway. Soup beans, these little navy beans.
Oh, I love them. Do you still like them?
Yes, I do. I think anything that you had a lot of for any length of time, you learned to like it. And my mom.
Soup, beans, and fried potatoes, you can't beat them.
No, that's what we had.
And a homegrown tomato, Arlene?
Yeah. Yep.
So did you all have a car when you were little, or do you remember?
Right at the start, we had a Model A, and I remember riding in that place up in the back of it. There were just 2 kids then, when I was a little kid. But yeah, all you remember is snatches. I don't think you remember your complete life. You'd be a historian if you were.
Oh, that's true. So when you went to Akron, did you drive, take a train, or take a bus?
No, we went by car with my girlfriend's mother and dad. Okay. He had a brother that lived there, Jerry Denny, and I think he worked in maybe one of the aircraft. I mean, one of those rubber factories. And you
said your husband had rheumatic fever. Did that affect his heart?
Yes, it did. That's why I was a widow for 8 years. He had worked at the post office long enough to retire, and he had applied for retirement, but he never got to use it. He died first.
When did he pass away?
Like 1983, June 1983. Now I can.
So you were married in June, and he died in June. Am I right?
Right.
Yeah. Huh.
Not that way. I mean, it was what? How many years have we been married? About 40.
Let's see.
I forget how many. I have to count it up. I can count it up, but I'm not going.
Well, now, let's talk about your children. How many children did you have? I know I've talked to your daughter.
I had 5 children. The youngest one is Paula Garner, and she will be 73 in 2 minutes. July. Oh, no. 73 in January. Now, I can tell you all their names and dates. And the second one was Marilyn Hayhurst. She taught school for 28 years in Pennsboro in the grade school. And then her kidneys went bad when she was young. She got a kidney transplant, and now she is on dialysis. Goes 3 times a week, which is crazy. Like they couldn't put a kidney place in Pennsboro, I don't know, or someplace in one of the counties, which would be closer. But they drive 40-some miles every week, 3 times a week. And my third daughter is married and divorced. She lives in Harrisville, West Virginia. And since she graduated, she has 2 children. She lives in Harrisville, and she's still a widow. No, not a widow. She's a divorcee.
Where is Harrisville? I don't know it.
And it's about 15 miles from Pennsboro. It's in Ritchie County also.
Okay.
You were getting a history lesson.
No, and then did you have any boys? Come on now, you've got 3 girls going there.
We would have had a dozen kids. I think my husband would have had a dozen kids. But on my number 4 child, we got a boy.
And what's his name?
You know. And then he was going to have another little brother for him. He said, "Surely we'll have another one," but we didn't. We had another girl. And that's what he called.
Oh, that poor boy. What's his name?
His name is the same as his dad. Phelps Paul Taylor Jr. Oh, no, not Jr., the third.
Uh-huh.
And then Diane, his sister, was born 2 years later, maybe 2.5. And she's a school teacher also. Graduated from Fairmont State. By the way, Marilyn graduated from Glenville College.
Uh-huh.
And Glenville is the college and place where we had such a nice thing. The Rosie's got such a nice.
Yes, I remember you there. Yes, yes.
Over there.
Mhm. And that there's quite a story to Glenville because one of our board members, who is a retired naval colonel or naval captain, was he was teaching there, and when we had an event up there in 2000 and not sure, I believe it was 12, and we didn't know you at the time. And then we've been pretty close to Glenville State College. We've done several things up there. We just gave an award to Girl Scout leader. It's the first Girl Scout leader we've ever given an award to. We gave an award to her there on
little girl
on Labor Day. Yeah,
it helped me around when we were up there. It was fantastic. She's so nice, so sweet.
Yes, she's a really neat lady, isn't she? Yeah, her name is Marissa Fox, and her girls are very well trained. She's very serious about her Girl Scout leadership and all that.
That's the reason.
Michael, let's talk about what she thinks she learned in life and that sort of thing. Have you got any questions about how this made a difference to her in life?
Well, I was gonna ask first before we got there. I was gonna ask her, when you worked on the wings, did you work with all women, or were there any men involved in your group? Or
there were, but I wasn't close to them, so I didn't know them all except the one that wanted to sit beside my girlfriend and eat lunch. Fine, I think was his name. But I don't remember any on my wing, anyway. Oh yeah, there were.
So,
and the males were the inspectors were males. Am I right?
We weren't classified as bona fide inspectors. I don't think. Now I don't think they make that kind of records anymore. But if we did, they called on us to do it anyway.
Yeah.
And
so you did what you were asked to do.
I want to tell you, that was something special for me. The first time I ever saw a live dwarf, there was a lot of pygmy. I mean, little tiny people. And I saw this girl
I was going to ask you about that.
Strap, riding on a bus, and I thought, "My, she's standing in the seat." Sure, she was. She would have smothered as she went somewhere else. She's real pretty. They were able to go into the fuselage and repair.
I was
well, now,
yeah. I had read that they used dwarfs and things and the nose cones and the real tight spaces to do the riveting and things.
Well, that might be.
I was going to ask you about that.
That's where they were used. I don't know, but that was my first dwarf.
Arlene, I've read, and I hope it's true, you never know, but that when the Wizard of Oz was made, and they had the Munchkins and all of that. Then Goodyear, that was before the war. I believe it was made in 1939. And Goodyear then went to Hollywood and said, where are these midgets or dwarves or whatever they might have been called at the time? And they hired them specifically because they were small.
Oh, yeah.
And they could get in tiny places.
That's true, they did.
How many did you?
I only saw 2.
Mm-hmm.
But I might have seen other people, but I didn't know I was looking at them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, right. I have some photos of work where very small men, I wouldn't call them midgets or dwarfs, but, abnormally small men were working with women because they could just get into small places. I think that was primarily, the problem was, for example, doing wiring in nose tips or wing tips. You had to get really small people. Arlene, what is the difference you think that when you went away like this off the farm and you went into the factory, do you think that made a difference in your life?
Well, yes, I do. I think I became more responsible. I mean, I learned to work. I always learned to work, to do things. But in there, you learn what it means to hold up a gun. I think it weighed about 15 pounds. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to accomplish something. You had a job to do, and it was hard work. I built up a muscle.
We interviewed one woman who said that she learned to wear long sleeves because she was so ashamed of her muscles after riveting. And I can understand that. Her name was Krina Anderson. We were very close to her. And someday we hope to do an animated film of her story. But one of the pieces of her story was she married a man who was a Pearl Harbor survivor. He died. She married another man who was a Pearl Harbor survivor, and she went to the Pearl Harbor Association and said, all right, I've already done a hospice on 2 Pearl Harbor survivors. Give me another one. And she moved in with another man and took care of him before he died.
Oh.
So there's some wonderful stories. I wish we could get all you ladies together. Yeah, there's some really good stories.
My current husband was a railroad engineer. Bob Snyder. He was Bobby. A railroad engineer in World War II.
Where did he serve?
All over Germany. Through Germany.
Really? Oh, really?
Did he drive the locomotives?
Yes.
I always wanted to do that.
Yeah.
Every little boy wants to do that. Michael, grow up.
There's a friend of mine that works on the railroad, but they won't. And I said, I'll get my teeth just to ride in one. So
I don't understand why your brother. Why your second husband was driving a train in Germany. What's that about? Explain that to us.
Is what?
You said your second husband, Bobby, was a railroad engineer in Germany?
Yeah, and all through France, Germany, Holland, all the countries in through there. I didn't know that American soldiers drove the trains. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Really? Did you know that, Michael?
No, I was going. Were they taking supplies?
A whole bunch of stories. You ought to interview him if you want.
We ought to do that one of these days. Seriously. No, for one thing, he's a World War II veteran. We would like to interview him. We really would.
Oh.
Yeah. You tell him that we'll be calling back. Tell us about your feelings today, Arlene, about the work world today, and if you had advice for young people today, what work would you tell them to get into and that kind of thing? What about the world has changed and everything's automated now. I mean, even to talk on the phone like this was undreamable but when I was even a child.
Oh, it was. And not only that, but the computer age, kids in school learn computers and learn to do it. But if you're good at it, continue with it because it's going to be the thing of the future. And learn to work and love to do it. If you like your work, you'll be glad to go.
Yeah, and I think we had an interview last Sunday with a young man who worked for me for a year, and then he was a volunteer for another year. We took him to the Netherlands, and the Rosies were hosted in the Netherlands. And he was interviewed with me last weekend by StoryCorps, and that goes around the country, and they put the stories in the Library of Congress and so forth. But when I asked him, he's the fifth generation now. He's 18, his mother's 38, his granny is 58, I'm 79, and then my mother was a Rosie, and I'm interviewing you all and pretty much consider myself a generation younger than you all. And I said, that's 5 generations, Nick, that you've learned. What's the major thing you've learned? And he said, well, the older the generation that he has been able to know, meaning the Rosies, the more they like to work. And I love to work, and I find meaning in it. And he said the young people don't find meaning in work anymore. And that's a pretty serious statement.
I think.
What do you think about all this, Michael? What's some of your observations to ask her about the modern day of work?
Well, I've told you in my experience, I think one of the problems is, Arlene, how old were you when you went to work at Akron?
18 years old.
And a lot of times...
My birthday was July the 26th, 1924. And I went to work in August, I don't know what day it was sometime in August, the month of August, in 1942. Just turned it around. 24.
So many kids back then worked on the farm, and they were such a viable part of the farm operation, like Anna and all that. But nowadays, kids don't work.
No,
they don't work until they go to the workforce, and then employers are complaining that they don't have a work ethic and don't have the soft skills. But
that's
they
very
don't work.
Important.
It is, and you learned a lot of those. You learned a lot of those skills and the importance of quality of work. And I was going to ask you. You said that they called upon you and your partner to fix a lot of the bad rivets that maybe another crew did. And I'm assuming that's because they were so impressed with your quality of work and your attention to detail.
Well, it might be, I hope, because I remember praying when I went to work that I'd be able to do good work, because I thought maybe some of my friends, even my friends, would be held safe because their plane wing didn't fall. You know, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
See, I just think that there's like I said, so much meaning to your work and all that, and I think kids today just don't have that. And
they don't have it.
I think that's why your story is so important.
Yeah. That's true.
Bobby, do you live, your daughter that I've been talking with, Diane, is she the closest? Who's closest to you physically? Your children who live near you?
Oh, you mean physically?
Yeah, who lives close by?
My son is in, my daughter, I guess, would be closest, because she's in Vienna, West Virginia.
Okay, near Parkersburg.
Yeah.
And by the way, I just read that the 10th most desirable place to live in America is Vienna and Parkersburg, West Virginia, that little strip along the Ohio River there. That's
true?
Yeah, and I agree. You know, I love the river, and there's just something about, you know, if you want to go to a small town, go to one on the Ohio River. It's beautiful over there.
Oh, it is.
that.
And my St. Mary's, West Virginia, was a very
Yes.
my grandparents they were.
Now, have you all ever gone to Hillbilly Hot Dogs?
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
serious.
I love hot dogs.
Have you heard
Where
of
is
Hillbilly
it?
Hot Dogs?
Where is that, Michael?
It's right once you. It's not right outside Huntington. It's on the river.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And we went there a while back, and it was an hour and a half wait to get in this little place to get a hot dog.
You are kidding.
No, man. You all, if you
Oh, God.
got any access on the computer, look it up. But the man,
Well, what's the
the
name of
husband,
it? What's the name of the
Hillbilly
hot
Hot
dog?
Dog.
Joy.
They've got a
Hillbilly
bus.
hot dog.
You can eat on an old bus. They've got an old bus sitting up in the trees. And if there was one biker there was 100.
Oh.
But the guy that owns it, he had gone to California and met his wife, and he brought her back, and with no intentions of staying, and he showed her this farm that they owned on the side of this hill, and she goes, well, I don't want to leave here. She goes, you put me up a shack here, and we'll make a living. They started Hillbilly Hot Dogs. Look it up. Get a chance. Look it up on your.
I will. Maybe
they've got a little chapel there where you can get married.
There's a chapel to get married. Is that what you said, Michael?
Yes, I'm telling you, it's a destination. It's an easy experience. But they fry the hot dogs.
Right. I'm putting all this work into making West Virginia proud to be, you know, a model for Rosie work, and I'm competing with Hillbilly Hot Dogs for bringing in tourists. Really.
Sure enough.
Arlene, Michael has a very interesting perspective on education now. As a principal of a high school that was VOTEC, he has a lot of interest in trying to figure out how to attract women, but just basically how do you get people to do hands-on work? How do you attract girls into VOTEC training and that kind of thing? Do you have any thoughts about whether or not it was, tell us what you think about all that.
Well, I think it's a good thing because anymore everything's so automated and so big, and you know, I think that women that went into bricklaying and hands-on work would like it if they would do it.
Okay, and what about now the science now that's coming along and the artificial intelligence and robotics and all that? What experts are saying is there are jobs lost because of robotics, but it's creating new kinds of jobs because people have to make those robots. They have to decide what those robots are going to do, etc. Do you have any thoughts about the modern world coming along here? That
I just can't believe what's going to happen in the modern world because things are so things happen that you can't even see.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like they can bomb a building and they won't even be around it.
Yes. And we talked to a man yesterday about putting out fires. You know, they can send robots into burning buildings.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
And, of course, you riveted on airplanes and stuff, but I'm hearing that in the future, the biggest battles in the air are going to be fought by drones because they can make so many of them.
They won't be making planes anymore. They'll put them in up in the museums.
Yeah, because they don't want to put the pilots in harm's way, and the things planes can do nowadays, pilots can't handle the G-forces and stuff. So the drones will be the way the air battles are fought.
That's exactly the way going to happen.
Well, now, what if you probably do have grandchildren and great-grandchildren that are going into the workforce.
24 great-grandchildren.
How many?
24. I've got 12 grandchildren and 24 great-grandchildren.
Oh, my gosh. Well, now, do you talk to them about getting hands-on training, or what do you tell them about how to be, what should they do, or do you just not give them advice? How does that work?
Well, I don't know. I'll tell you a little story if you'd like to hear about one of them.
Yeah.
I have my youngest grandson is not married yet. Very good-looking guy. All the time that my husband, my first husband, my second husband, Bobby Snyder, ever since he's been married to me, my youngest grandchild, Mitchell Bell, Beall, has called him Granddad because he's the only granddad that he knew. He didn't know his granddad Taylor. He died. So every time you go up, Mitchell was always doing things. He learned to drive the tractor. He learned to do everything. And, of course, they live on a farm. And, of course, his father did other things. But besides farm, he did that, but he did other things. But anyway, this Mitchell, everything, they'd yell, Mitchell, where, go do this, go do that, find this, find that. And I got to call him Gunga Din because there's a poem by Rudyard Kipling where it says, "You're a better man than I am, Gunga Din." That's so you water boy. I'll not tell you any more, grandson.
Well, we're real interested since Michael was principal of Avovtech High School, and he also was a basketball coach for women prior to that and so forth. He's really, really interested in what to say to young people and how to guide young people, what occupations to go into, if we use robotics, how are we going to make sure they're used in the right way and that kind of thing. So if you've got any thoughts about that, we'd love to hear you say anything, whatever your feelings are.
Well, I think however the nation goes, however the leaders are, and what they present to our country are going to be of vast importance because you do look up to someone in authority. Roosevelt was a good president.
Yep. I can remember when Roosevelt died, my mother had a cedar chest, and she took the newspaper and folded it and was crying when she put it in the cedar chest.
Yes.
Yeah. And, I remember all that. I can remember Eleanor Roosevelt being on TV and everybody stopping everything. This was when TV was fairly new. And, that they were going to be able to hear her talk because she had such really good diction and all that. Many, many, many people looked up to him. They really did.
Roosevelt and her also, because he was, I remember him saying during the war, after the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, he said, we're going to build so many planes, so many guns, so many tanks, so many ships. I mean, he just went on and on. I thought, we can't do this. Our nation can't do all this. We did it in war.
Yeah.
We did it in war. We left all kinds of stuff, they said, in Russia. They left it in Russia, and they put their labels on it and said they built it.
Did you all realize that FDR was disabled or down? Because I know he kind of hid it as far as being in a wheelchair and different things like that. But did you all realize? Did he have it concealed that well from the country that he was hurting that bad?
I think that he did conceal it from the country, but he had rheumatic fever. No, not rheumatic fever. He was
Polio.
Had polio, didn't he?
Polio.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, he did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he couldn't walk. He might have been able to walk a little bit, but not much. I don't know.
I went to a lecture of a man who wrote a book about him, and it was here in Charleston. And they basically talked about how ashamed he was. He didn't want the American people to see him as a cripple because he thought that diminished his, basically his image, and that it wasn't good for the country to see a crippled man as president. And there would be people hiding behind him, literally holding him up so he could stand up and speak. Yeah. So, what?
Fires I chat. I heard.
Yes. And these were by radio, right?
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm. And what they put on the news, they took pictures. But we didn't have any thing like that.
Well, as I recall, we didn't have TV, so we would go to the picture show, we called it, to see the shorts. We saw the news in basically in the...
Neville Chamberlain come over from England and promised to Hitler that he could have all of France. Now you can have Czechoslovakia, you can have this. Yeah, you've got them now, but we'll not go to war with you if you'll just not go any further. Huh.
Yep.
That was something, wasn't it?
Yep. I remember that.
He aimed to take the whole world, what he aimed to do, to have it under Nazi rule.
It seems almost...
It
seems almost unbelievable, doesn't it, at this point?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
There's a lady here in town, and she just passed away, but she was in a concentration camp. But she told me the story about, when they had, she said when she was a little girl, about 8 years old, she would run the back streets of Berlin to go hear Hitler speak. And, of course, that was in the 30s, but at that point, he was like Time Magazine's Man of the Year, and everybody just, she said, I can close my eyes and hear people just going, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler.
Oh, yeah.
She talked about how he had him worked in a frenzy, but everybody just loved him at that time and didn't realize how crazy he was.
They kind of like to deny it after 6 million Jews in a war and all the world war, but it was true, they did.
They sure did, but there were so many things. She was sent to a concentration camp. She doesn't know what happened to her mother, and it breaks your heart.
I read all those stories, a lot of them. It's awful.
I tried to get her to come talk to my kids, and she just said, I can't do it anymore. I just want to forget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we all understand that.
You lived through it again.
Say it again, Arlene. What did you say?
I didn't hear you.
What did you say? Repeat what you said. I didn't hear it.
Oh, I don't know what you said. I guess my hearing's gone. I have a hearing aid in this ear I'm listening out of. But it's doing really good so far.
Well, we really would like to interview your husband. Could we set up a time to interview him sometime soon?
Yeah, why?
By phone. Let's do that.
He's undergoing cancer treatment right now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, but maybe he'll be free of it in a few more treatments.
Arlene, do you have anything that you would like people to remember about you, not just being a Rosie, but how would you like to be remembered?
Well, I suppose a responsible woman and a kind person. That's the only thing that makes any difference to Christian. Trying to do the best I can.
And that's definitely true, isn't it? One thing that I miss as a leader of an organization that basically is it's got me by the tail for sure. I don't have a tiger by the tail. A tiger has me by the tail. And the thing is that what I miss most is I have to work so hard, and I have to make sure that schedules are met and different forms and registrations and all that sort of thing. And I don't have time to be kind. And I miss that. I don't have time to be a softer person. And I think one of the joys in talking with you, Rosie, is that it brings me back to my own childhood. But I really think that women, the women of your era, were very special ladies. It wasn't just that they were kind and did their family duties, but because you all saw the war and conserving, and that you felt responsible for people's lives. I just think you were really very special people.
Well, I know a lot who were, and they were good people too.
Yeah.
But they were ordinary people. Let's not forget they were just of their generation. They did what they had to do, and what's our motto? We had to do it, or no, it's not. And we will do it.
I don't know.
That was one of the mottos was in World War II. We did it before, and we can do it again. World War I and World War II. We could do both.
Yeah. And actually, our organization still use that same phrase. We did it before. We did it then. We'll do it again. That's what they say. Michael, are you still on the line? I think the system dropped him off, Arlene. This is a good way to do interviews, and you are able to get a lot of good information. We find doing teleconferences is you get more information more cheaply than if you than if you actually went to someone's home. Are you still on the line there, Michael?
I got cut off, but I just got back.
Yes. I don't know why that did that to me the last two times.
I can hear you. I can hear you.
Anyway, sum up and let's try to figure out what we can glean from the next minute or two here, Michael, and then we'll try to figure out a time that we can interview her husband.
Okay. That would be great. I hope you come before too long because he forgets pretty easy.
Is that right?
But he's got a book, and he's got a picture, and he's got a citation, and he'll tell you about those things too.
Okay, that's great. That's great. Now, do you have any photos of yourself that your daughter or somebody could scan and send to us? A scan means, that it's put in.
I didn't have very many high school pictures made, but I sent one to. She could send you her picture. She has a picture, and it's just a high school picture.
And that's your daughter, you're saying, would send that to us?
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. We would love that. And if you can scan if you find that, you said you had a pay stub. If you could find that would be helpful. Anything that you can send to us so we have just a record of who you are. Yeah. And so tell your husband that right now I mentioned to you that my board member and my best friend for about 6 or 7 years now is literally dying today. And I'm going to get Uber and go up to Charleston Memorial. I talked to his family, and they said, I said, well, should I come? And they said, cried when I tell you this. They said, well, just let him have a glance at you and let him know that you were here and that he's going really fast. So that's what I'm going to do today. But in the next few days, we'll figure out a date for us to interview your dad. I'd like you to do that interview, Michael. I think that because your dad's a World War II veteran.
I something about Michael, and him. I think that'd be nice.
Yes, I think Michael should do the interview. So let's leave it for now, and then we'll get back together soon. And I'm going to drop in the mail a permission form for you that you need to sign and get back to us, Arlene, so that we have legal permission to use your interview and your information for education and for public awareness and all that. All right, very good. All right.
I hope that I have it right. You know, I think, well, is this the way you did it? Is this the way you saw it? Is this really true? You know, it seems.
Well, one of the things that makes me think you sure do have it right is it's very reminiscent. It's very similar to other people's stories. And one of the delights in doing an interview is you see the common things between what the women say. Like, you know, you're saying that you felt responsible for people's lives, and you prayed every day that you would do a good job. Now, that's, nobody else has ever said it that way, but they all say pretty much the same thing. Then each of you has a different story. I mean, the fact that your husband had rheumatic fever and essentially, you know, in the military, he basically wasn't that well taken care of, and, you know, had an ear infection and us and such. All of this is really important to history. If only we could get young people to understand, you know, and hear and feel the pain. One of the things that I talk about a lot that nobody else seems to talk about in you know, the different Rosie groups or whatever is that many of the women have seen the physical and mental harm done to men who were in the military, and especially
I know.
Yeah,
and the prisoners of war. I had a high school person that was a little bit ahead of me in school, but he was captured in the his whole platoon was captured by the Germans, and I said, why don't you just have this put on a little tape, you know? I said, this is so interesting.
Yeah.
Fremont.
And was that in that was in Europe? Am I right?
And he was in World War. He was in German war camp. Now, you know, there was a show about a German SOG number, whatever it was. Well,
yeah.
His story was similar to that.
Yeah, right.
But this was a comic story, and this was comic.
Well, one of the things that I think makes us really different than other Rosie groups is, and it's only one, but it's important that a lot of Rosie groups just will be very proud that they're having a Macy's Day parade once a year, and that they have the Rosies, in a parade. But then I've been to parades, and I quit going to parades because every parade I ever went to where Rosies were being featured, I would stand off in the crowd and I would say, "Did you see the Rosies?" "Yes, I saw her." And I'd say, do you know what she did? "Oh, yeah, there was a Rosie once. There was some woman, and they're dressing up like these." Well, they have no idea. They have no idea what you all did.
No, they don't. They need a little movie or something put on by the ones able. Or they don't have to be able. You need to tell their story.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with having parades, and there's nothing wrong with having events and all that, and little girls dressing up at Halloween and saying, "I can do it." That is part of it. Saying that I can do it and knowing that you did it before and you're going to do it again, that's really important. But you got to know that what behind it is not just, saying I'm a world beater and there's nobody like me. It comes across almost in some of these children, it comes across as they're feeling like they're special and they can do anything. If we don't pull together, we're doomed. It's pretty strong words, but I feel that, and I don't know how we pull together when the young people are so, they essentially really don't understand.
Well, there's not a lot to do too. I feel like I see every day a lot of young people that seem to be pretty good.
And I love young people, yeah. But they're kind of at a loss because they don't feel a sense of purpose.
I feel sorry for them. Sorry because they don't have that. And school teachers have a big job too.
Oh, don't they? Yeah. Michael is a very positive personality. If I had been in Michael's position over the last couple, 3 years I've known him as he was teacher, I would have been very frustrated. Drug problems in the schools, the parents with drugs and all that kind of thing. Anyway, let's be in touch in the next week or so, and I will be sending you this form, and you tell your husband that we'll be getting back with him. Right now, what I really have to deal with is getting a hold of my Uber or a taxi and getting myself to a hospital, because I think Ron will be gone by the end of the day.
I'll say a prayer for you.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. Michael, I love you, and we'll be talking soon, okay?
Arlene, it's good talking to you.
And listen, we lived in 1941 Bonavista Drive in Charleston, West Virginia, and it isn't hard at all to find.
Okay. Where is it?
In Charleston.
It's that's near the Capitol or not?
Yes.
In the East End, yeah.
Yes, in the East End. You, as you go to the airport, you turn off on Oakwood Drive at a service station.
Oh, I know where that is. Okay.
You know where that is. And you come to the top of the hill, and you'll see a sign after you pass the let. Bona Vista, B-O-N-A, Vista Drive. It's a cul-de-sac. You can go one way and come out the other on the same Bona Vista.
Right.
That one of those kind of streets.
And yeah.
We live at 1941, and we have a sign out front that says Bob and Arlene Snyder.
Okay. All right, that's good. By the way, did you know that we had another Arlene Snyder who was a Rosie, who died about 5 years ago? Did I tell you that?
I think you did.
Yeah, really. Anyhow, folks, thank you so much, and we'll be back in touch, and just kind of bear with me because I'm a little bit scattered right now. And honestly, when a family tells you that just to come in and he will recognize you and he just needs to have a glance of you, that really puts it.
How about that? That's great.
All right, well, Ann, be safe.
All right, you be safe too. And this has been quite a long interview. I'll bet you think I've really talked too much.
Well, I enjoy listening. I'm telling you. I appreciate all your thoughts and memories and all that. I just think it's wonderful to listen to it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I don't feel like I've said the right things, but I mean, I've never given you anything out of this world information. I'll tell you that. It's just day to day.
Well, all right. Well, it's nice talking to you. Y'all be careful. Be careful.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.